Look who y'all brought in here. Richard Rummel with us. Is it still exotic species, or are you pretty much black bear?
Exotic species and black bear. Pretty much black bear.
That's pretty much what it's gotten to.
Yep.
It's been a long time. I hadn't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good to be here.
Glad you're here. We're going to talk about black bears today, and they're back. We got them.
They're coming back.
They're coming back.
You ever
Making a
seen one?
comeback.
You ever seen one, Adam?
I have seen a couple, yes,
In the wild?
in the wild. I got a.
Freak you out?
I have a really crazy story you're not going to believe.
Well, tell it.
I came upon one in Louisiana on one of their wildlife management areas. My dog found it, denned up in a tree, about 10 years ago.
Really?
What kind of dog? What kind of hunting dog is it?
German short-hair pointer.
What were they looking for?
We were hunting woodcock.
And he treed a bear.
We thought he was going to go point one
I
of the
think-
little birds, and
I think we're beginning to
Yeah.
discover why he doesn't
Yeah.
ever harvest many woodcock when
Yeah.
he goes hunting with his dogs because they're treeing bears.
it's like one of his all-time great stories. The dog has led like a really checkered, colorful life, and I mean, I can always say he
you can
found
add
a
that
bear.
one. Yeah, it's kind of like my buddy.
We passed it along to our friends at LDWF, and they actually went in and did a den check. and
Cool.
It was a mama that
Is-
had little ones.
Like a den on the ground.
Yeah, it was
I guess.
it was a big, huge cypress tree that had fallen over out in the swamp.
Hmm.
And I remember approaching it thinking, that tree's big enough to have a bear in it. Because we knew there were bears in the area, and sure enough, there was a bear in it.
Mm.
You ever seen one, Reed?
Yep.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Freak you out or what?
No, it's you kind of freeze and you don't want to draw too much attention to yourself, but they're pretty populated in the South Delta and along the river. So I've had the opportunity to work, with some stuff, some cases. Unfortunately, where some were killed, and dealt with some instances with Richard. Where folks are just acting like knuckleheads and shooting bears, wounding them with 22s and stuff like that. Just unfortunate
stuff to
events.
get you
Yeah.
put in the slammer.
Yeah.
If you want to do stupid stuff like that in a big
we
ticket.
hadn't had any instances here, knock on wood, recently.
Right.
But there is some strong prosecution that goes along with that, and maybe that helps.
They're pretty protected, aren't they, Richard?
Yeah,
they are protected.
They're classified as endangered in Mississippi, so it's a Class 1 violation to harass, harm, shoot. So that's pretty much $2,000 to $5,000 fine, year in jail.
Yeah. We're not talking about a ticket either, are we, Reed? You're talking about you
The
probably
pokey, man.
You're going to go to jail.
Slammer.
That's the technical term?
Well, it's everybody's got their nicknames. I had an instance one time where we worked a bear up. They were doing some trapping in the summertime, and we went and the biologist at the time was Holder, and he said, "You want to go with me?" I said, "Sure, I'll go." It was summertime. It was hot. It was hot. And we go up there to this thing, and there's one in the pen or in the trap. And I said, "How you get those? How you get the bears in the trap?" And he said, "Well, you won't believe me, but we bait them up with donuts." And I said, "No, yeah, donuts." And so we work it up, and this thing is laid out on this tarp, and it's been put to sleep, temporarily, whatever the term for that is, I don't know. But about halfway through, old bear that big old tongue starts coming out and licking around his mouth, and we're working him up. And I look at Holder, I'm like, "Hey man, you may want to give him some more of them medicines, give him some more of them drugs." He goes, "No, he's all right." Well, this thing starts getting more and more awake. I'm like, "For real, man, you need to
Reed was getting a little
knock
nervous.
this thing out." I mean,
He was wanting some more donuts.
we're measuring all
Sure.
kind of things on the bear, and somebody wakes up, he's not going to be too happy. So we put him to sleep a little bit longer. I mean, he was, you're holding a bear, and all of a sudden he's kind of looking at you, licking his lips and stuff, and it's like,
Kinda scary.
eerie feeling.
Richard Rummel is here with us. He's with the Bear Program. We got that going on, and they're here. They're back. They were almost gone, weren't they?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure were. Yeah, they figured probably maybe in the early 1930s when our predecessor, the Mississippi Game and Fish Commission, was formed, that there were maybe 25 bears left in the state.
Wow.
Contrary to what some people think, we have never actually actively done a restoration project with bears. We have never trapped and brought bears into the state. kind of what happened maybe 15 years ago. The expanding populations in Louisiana and southeast Arkansas began swimming the Mississippi River, and a few of them stayed here. A few of the females stayed over here. So it's just been a slow recolonization of the bears throughout the state.
What happened? Why were they gone? Did people just slaughter them?
Yeah, overhunting and habitat loss.
Yeah.
And that's just like with any wildlife. Years ago when there were no game laws, you could shoot whether it was a bear, a deer, a squirrel, turkey, anything year-round, as many as you wanted. And then on top of that, as the Delta was being cleared for agriculture and down south, the longleaf pine, were cleared, just habitat loss. And you throw that together, and it's not just for the bears, it was for all wildlife, taking a pretty hard hit.
And so it wasn't anything manipulated by man. They've pretty much come back themselves naturally, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. There was talk 10 to 15 years ago with some of the bear conservation groups exploring the possibility of bringing a few in. It would be very costly, very time-consuming, labor-intensive, and perhaps a little controversial. So we just kind of stood back, and the bears did it on their own.
And we're talking about black bear. That's the only bear that we have in Mississippi,
That's
right?
Correct. That's correct. We do not have grizzly bears or brown bears.
Why is that?
Well, it's just the natural range of the grizzly bears, pretty much from the Midwest, the Central Plains, Great Plains, westward, and then up into Canada, actually down into Mexico as well. And then they were killed just like all predators in the early centuries. All predators were bad: wolves, bears, coyotes, mountain lions. Everything was just systematically killed off. So this Mississippi was never within the natural range of the grizzly bear.
And black bears, pretty much, they're not going to go. They're not going to be like a grizzly bear kill you. We know that, and that they will attack you. Black bears probably not like that unless there's some cubs around, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, that can be the case. And as you said, black bears are not as aggressive as grizzlies. Although in recent years there have been attacks. We don't try to hide that. One of the things we were going to talk about is when there have been attacks and there have not been that many fatalities. It's when bears get used to attractants around a house, whether it's garbage, whether it's pet food left out overnight, whether it's and they begin to feel comfortable around humans, and there's no negative stimulus for them to stop doing that. Then they get a little more comfortable around humans, and if they accidentally get cornered or something like that, they may attack. And again, like you said, with a mother with cubs, they're going to be defensive just like any animal would.
JT, did you see that video that was going around, I don't know, about a year or two ago I think it was a black bear. The scenery looked like it was out west somewhere, Rocky Mountain sort of thing, and it was a best I remember, either a deer fawn or a young elk or something had gotten kind of cornered in somebody's backyard, and they filmed the bear taking down the fawn. It was
kind of through the fir trees or something in the backyard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nature at its ferociousest.
So, and I want to talk about that. We want to talk some more about that. April and May is a time for increasing bear activity, and also you guys want to know more about the bears. Y'all want to know when people see them.
Well,
Greg says that ran across two sets of bear tracks on the backside of Enid Lake and River Bottom. One big, one small, left in the opposite direction as fast as my legs could go. Jason says, how far can a black bear range on average? We had one on deer camera at my lease in Jasper County a couple of years ago, but only got one picture of him. We have multiple cameras out. Thanks. So what is their range? It's pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah. And it kind of depends on time of year as well. In the summer, during breeding season, which is July, late June, July into August, The males will really wander. I mean, I can't give you acreage-wise, but they're out looking for females, so they increase their range. And as well in the fall when they're trying to pack on a lot of calories with the winter coming on, they're traveling far and wide, looking for a food source. We've had bears collared in the past, radio collared. A male's range maybe 200,000 acres or so. A female maybe 5,000. And again, it depends on the quality of habitat. If there's good food source around, plenty of it, they're not going to travel that far. So it depends on the habitat and depends on the time of year.
Richard, I remember one, didn't we? We have one that we caught and collared somewhere down along the coast, maybe Red Creek area, that ended up in Alabama, north of Mobile. I mean, I don't know what the air mile distance of that. We kind of went back and forth, as I recall.
Yeah, there was one there that was caught in Pearl River County years ago. There was, as our guys down there found out, there was a guy, a long haul truck driver, and he dumped corn out in his backyard every night just to watch the wildlife. And he'd dump corn out and then be on the road for a week. Well, this bear found it. He kept coming back, and it was almost one of those 2-3 strikes, you're out. Our guys finally caught him, put an ear tag in him, didn't have radio collars back then, and let him go. And as sightings went on, he was making a beeline right back to that guy's cabin. I think they released him on Old River Management Area. Anyway, he ended up in South Alabama, and the guys down there were doing some bear research, and all the bears around there were behaving well, being bears in the woods. They got a picture of this bear with his red ear tag laying in somebody's carport, cuddled up with the dog's food bowl, children's toys around, and so he became he was not a good poster child for
he was a
bear
legend,
research.
huh?
Yes, actually that bear ended up in the Jackson Zoo. They called us and they said, we're bringing your bear back, either alive or dead, it's your choice. So he was one of those that had come to depend on human food.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't concerned about being around people and all, so it was a potential public threat.
Mm-hmm. And well, he ended up in the zoo, and that was a good place for him.
Yep.
Yeah. Hunter from the Delta, guy I know had a black bear try to come up the ladder stand on his deer stand. That's pretty uncommon, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's probably more common than we hear about, and we hear about those. The best thing, and I know it's kind of, a lot of people think it's kind of cool seeing a bear, and a lot of clubs we work with up through the Delta inside the levee, have bears, and if you're hunting in a tree stand and you may be watching a bear down below, or even a mom with fairly young ones, yearlings. But if you got a snack in your pocket, if you got a honey bun, and this is for real, bears can smell incredibly well. If you've got something in your pocket that they can smell, or just out of curiosity, they get to that ladder and they'll start climbing it up, and they may get to the top and they're as surprised as you are. Don't let them get that far. If you're seeing it down there on the ground and it starts coming toward your ladder, throw something, yell, clap your hands. It may spoil your hunt for a little while, but you don't need to let the bear climb the tree stand.
Mm-hmm.
And that will prevent probably the next question that somebody would want to know is, well, if they do get up to the top, then what can I do? Because now I'm scared that they're fixing to attack me. So, if you're proactive in that and you try to run them off, yeah, you may booger your deer hunt up for 10, 15 minutes. But at that point, you're running the bear off, and they're scared of you. They don't want anything to do with you just as much as we don't want anything to do with them. And they'll run off, and then you'll prevent the decision having to be made where you want to defend yourself, which you have a right to do in the state of Mississippi, but you can also completely eliminate that choice by running the bear off.
Right.
When you see it getting close.
Yeah, just don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah, and we've seen those videos, and I would, it'd be an uncomfortable spot.
Exactly. Yep.
Any news on the giant Sylvania and Pelahatchie Bay opening? That is not a decision by the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. You need to call the Pearl River Water Supply District. They're the ones that's in charge of that. That has nothing to do with y'all. Y'all are merely assisting them.
That's right.
With anything that they can do. Y'all didn't close it, and y'all don't open it.
That's right. And I haven't heard from, we've had Larry Pugh on the air talking about that. I hadn't heard from him recently on what the timeline for that is.
Right.
But we can certainly try to find that out and get that on the air next week.
But that's PRV. That's
Correct.
all Pearl
That's
River Valley that is behind that decision. They're the ones that make the decision. They're the ones that are doing that. Again, you guys are just merely there to assist them as far as that's concerned. Richard, what about the flooding right now? And what's that doing to the bears right now in the Mississippi River and the lower Delta backwater flooding?
That's a really good question, and we get asked that every day. Unfortunately, in the lower Delta, we don't have any bears with radio collars on them right now. But what we know from the 2011 flood, in which there were a dozen or so bears with radio collars, bears can climb trees. Bears will climb trees. Of course, this flood is a little more severe than the 2011 flood, but the bears that were radio collared back then, even the females with cubs in the North Delta, when I say North Delta, I'm talking about Bolivar County, inside the levee there, based on telemetry going on at the time, they all stayed within their home range. Those 4 females each had 4 litters of cubs. So bears are much more adaptable than maybe some other species of wildlife. They can swim quite well. It's well documented that bears swim back and forth across the Mississippi River. But bears are more adapted to handling, flooding of this nature. But we're anxious as well to determine, once the water goes down, if it ever does, to get in there. And we're going to be, certain areas we're going to be putting some trail cameras up. And also, I'd like to encourage people to report sightings. Since this flooding began in mid-February, we have literally only gotten 2 reports of bears. Now, they're probably up in trees, but we've gotten one last week that was posted on Facebook, and actually one of our employees saw a bear just north of Chotard Lake on the levee last Thursday. And those are really the only 2 reports we've gotten since all this began. So we're very interested in the bears' response to the flooding.
We've got Adam Butler here, Major Chris Reed, Richard Rummel's here as well, and we've been talking about bears and basically ways to prevent or reduce human-to-bear conflicts. There's a lot of ways to do this, and it's simple things, right?
That's correct. Generally, when bears kind of get into trouble, it's when they're lazy, they're hungry, they're looking for something to eat, and generally, if that's around your house or a camp, it may be they smell garbage. They smell, if you have a pet dog or cat that you leave food out on the back porch or deck, they smell that. Grills, smokers, that sort of thing. Livestock feed, sweet feed for horses. They have a incredible sense of smell and incredible memory. So if they come through your neighborhood one night and there's leftover dog food on the back deck, they'll remember that, and they'll stroll through the next night. It's one thing to have a raccoon or a possum or a skunk eating out of your pet food bowl on the back deck, but it's another to have a bear. And so the main thing is just removing any attractants like that, trying to secure garbage cans in a shed or garage, something like that. Don't leave pet food out overnight.
They'll eat the whole bag, and you might wake up finding them there taking a nap right beside the empty bag.
That's
when you
right.
walk outside in the dark
right.
to let the dogs out, you step on your bear skin rug that's full of bear.
And the main thing is just preventive measurements that people can take. And the thing about it is bears have pretty much been absent on the landscape in Mississippi for 100 years, except in some places. So most folks aren't used to bears being out there and how to respond. How if they have a bear coming
I've
through
never
their
seen
backyard.
one.
Yeah, and so areas where they are coming back, we try to help people. We try to educate folks on what to do, how to take preventive measures to keep bears coming from up around the house. And as we were talking about, just same thing with the deer stands. Try to run them off or scare them off before they get a positive reinforcement.
Richard Rummel here with us as we're talking about the bears here in Mississippi and the fact they're out there. Now, bears will defend themselves if a person gets too close, right?
They will. And generally, people ask us if they're walking to their deer stand early in the morning and it's dark or things like that, or just come upon a bear in their yard. The main thing is giving it an escape route. Most of the time, like you said, you've never seen a bear, a lot of people haven't, that live around bears. Generally, bears hear somebody coming and they'll, walk away, go to cover where they're not going to be seen. But in the event that one is cornered, they'll not necessarily attack, but they'll try to get out of the way. I remember years ago over on Davis Island, which some of you may know, it's across the river from Vicksburg. It's actually owned by Mississippi, and they have big deer clubs over there and quite a few bears. And one of the guys walked out to one of the sheds one day and noticed the lock was off, and he opened the doors and there was a bear in there, and he said the bear ran over him trying to get out. It scared him so bad that the bear literally ran over him running back to the woods. Mm-hmm. So the most part, unless cornered, they'll not be aggressive. One of the things that has caused aggression in bears, if they get used to feeding, if they get used to a food source, and there's no negative reinforcement, if you don't run it off, they'll get comfortable around humans. And if you go out there and then they're looking for something to eat, and they feel cornered, they may be a little aggressive.
Wouldn't want to put yourself in that position,
No.
is what you're saying.
No.
Yeah. So, obviously, when we're talking about the bear population, it's going to continue to grow as it has, and that's a good thing. I mean, that it's coming back and it's making its way back. Any indication of how many bears we may have?
Yeah, that's a tough one with a species like the bear. Whether it's basically a solitary animal like any of the other large ones, mountain lions or bears, or whether it's grizzly bears, black bears. It's really hard to get a population estimate on it. I think we can safely say around 200 we have in Mississippi. That's based on some past research, and that's based on increasing number of sightings and documentation of bears in newer areas of the state where we haven't had reports in the past. So they're slowly increasing. A species like the bear reproduces slowly. It breeds every 2 years. It may have 2 cubs, it may have 4, maybe only 1 survives. So as they recolonize the state, it's going to be slow. But they're definitely increasing in numbers.
So I've gotten this question a few times, Richard, and I think some people may be wondering themselves, will we ever get to a population that can sustain a hunting season within the state?
I think we will. It's not going to be in the next 10 years or so. I know we've talked to some of the clubs along the Mississippi River up where you were in Bolivar County and along through there that
right.
Years ago when the bears first started moving in, they were kind of a novelty. Now they're not so much a novelty anymore, and they're ready to start hunting a few. Until we get better information on the numbers.
Right.
And again, it goes back to we work with them on preventive measures to try to, if they're going to the gut pile at a club or dumpsters or something, they're working with them along those lines. But, Louisiana is increasing their population. I think they think anywhere from 600 to 800 bears they have in Louisiana now. And they look at possibly a hunt, not next year or two, but if so, it would be like a quota hunt. Maybe,
right.
10 tags in a certain area. So in Missouri as well. I just got back from a bear conference in Missouri last week, and Missouri is kind of in the same situation we are, a little farther along. They have a recolonizing population of bears. They think around 300 now, and they're looking at having 500 before they consider opening a season.
That's good numbers to know.
Several questions. Can cattle farmers on the levee get a bear nuisance permit if they're losing calves to bears? They don't eat calves, do they?
They can't get a nuisance permit. I mean, if they would contact us and make sure that's what it is. It's never been documented in Mississippi. Not to say it hasn't happened. It's never been documented that they eat fawns, in Mississippi. Probably has happened. 90% of a bear's diet is plant matter foods, whether it's acorns, nuts, berries, even leaves and grass.
Someone asked about the CWD in the bear population. Bears aren't cervids, are they?
Nope.
No, and I don't. Richard,
No.
I don't want to speak for you, but I've never seen they get any form of TSE.
No, never documented anything closely related to CWD.
Richard, before we say goodbye, talk a little bit about where the folks can get more information on black bears on the website.
Okay, if you go to our website, www.mdwfp.com, and under hunting and wildlife and hunting, scroll down to that, black bear program will pop up. Click on that. You can read a lot about black bears in Mississippi, as well as you can report a bear sighting there. When it goes to that page, there's a picture of a bear, and it says report bear sighting. Click on that. It's interactive. You can upload videos, photos, go to a map there to record your sighting, and we really encourage folks to do that. That's kind of our eyes and ears out there, and it helps us keep track of where the bears are in Mississippi. There's also one thing. There's also a link on there to a website called bearwise.org. 15 member states of the southeastern wildlife agencies worked a couple of years to come up with this website. It's called Bearwise, and it's pretty much trying to keep wild bears wild and to prevent or reduce human conflicts with bears. More information than you could ever want to know about bears. But if you click on that link, there's a lot of good information about some things we've been talking about.
And that's mdwfp.com. Adam, you want to talk about ticks for a second?
I wanted to give a public service reminder, JT. Take ticks serious and spray down. So I had one, when was it, last week? I got a tick on me. It's the first one I've had in a while, about 5 or 6 years ago, JT. In our line of work, you're out in the woods a lot. So whether I'm, for fun or for work, always out in the woods and used to get ticks all the time, didn't think anything of it. And one of them just about put me down about 6 years ago. Came back negative for Lyme. I don't know what it was, but, for a week or two, I was in pretty bad shape and ended up having to have some antibiotic treatments. And so ever since then, I have been very, very, very adamant about spraying down and making sure I do everything to prevent them from getting on me. But I forgot last week, went in the woods, forgot, ended up with a tick. So if you really want to get nervous and scare yourself, start reading about all the potential tick-borne illnesses there are out there. It will really, really freak you out, and you will take it serious. So I just wanted to remind the listeners of that.
Well, and there's
it's that time of the year.
Well, and first of all, you can take like deep woods off and put on your skin,
right,
which is not a bad idea. But also on your boots and your shoes and your pants, they have the pyrethrin sprays.
Yeah, that's the stuff I like. You cannot spray it directly on your skin.
No,
with that pyrethrin.
You can put it on
spray it,
put it on your boots and on your pants legs and things like that. Because that's the majority. Where was it, on your leg?
Yeah, on the back part of my thigh.
Yeah, that's where they like to get. And,
yep.
You gotta really pay attention to them. They like to get there, and you can stop them. And of course, that's a good sign. They say the more ticks you have, the more deer.
And I know you heard about that, the alpha gal, the red meat allergy from ticks. I mean, talk about terrible.
You couldn't eat a hamburger again after that, and that's very real. That's a real disease, y'all.
That's great for red bugs too. I mean, I know red bugs aren't as serious as ticks, but I always step out of the truck, spray your pants, legs, and boots down with spray.
Mm-hmm.
Red bugs aren't fun.
Yeah, and or it's even worse. Like me, we a lot of times in the summertime we like to go out and about and out in shorts and things like that. So especially when it's hot, we're working or something like that. Not necessarily in the woods, but technically you are. So
Right.
it's definitely something you need to do. And they make some good stuff. You can get it at the local stores, the sporting goods stores and things like that. But they actually have a flea and tick defense that is that pyrethrin that you can put down, or tick defense is what they call it. Not
And
flea
that stuff's
tick.
usually good for a couple of washings. Like you spray it once, I think you can wash your clothes a time or two, and it's still active. So.
Well, they say the more ticks you have, the more deer you have. That's what they claim. Isn't that true?
I don't know. I do know. I have seen some research that was not from Mississippi, but from the Northeast, where they related those two things together, and deer in really high dense populations up there around suburbs and stuff may possibly be spreading ticks and tick-borne diseases and things. So there's some relationship there.
Could be there. Richard, thank you for being here. It's good to see you, man.
You bet, man. Glad to be here myself.
Yes, sir. And you too, Major Reed, and you too, Adam. We'll catch you next Monday. So we'll do some more.
Yeah.
And,
Well, can't wait.
Are you gonna go out with a bang in turkey season here?
I finished my season up a little bit ago.
Few
So
weeks
you got
ago,
a couple. You
he's
got two more days. Two
Is it
more
worth
mornings.
going?
2 more mornings. I think it's going to be good.
You're the eternal
Hey,
optimist.
I've had great success on May the 1st in the past. May the 1st has been good to me in the past.
Well,
So,
there you
You
go.
going this time?
I'm going to sit it out probably.
There you go. All right, gentlemen, thank you for being here today.